Hey guys, Sam Gourley OT here. I'm excited to share a little bit with you guys today around autism spectrum disorder, and I'm hoping that this video will be a great starting point for parents who perhaps suspect they might have a child on the spectrum, for people who perhaps have just received a diagnosis for the first time, also for those who are early professionals who are wanting to understand autism better. What I'm hoping is through this video I can share with you some information about autism to help you to understand what it is and how we can support individuals who have autism. I'm an OT with about 10 years experience in the early intervention field. I've been working for a long time in early intervention. I absolutely love working with kids with autism, and they are such a special group of little individuals. Specifically, the word autism means isolated self, and in essence, in autism, that's what we can sometimes see. It's a tendency towards having an intense internal focus. Often in children with autism, there are unique communication needs. Now, this can present in lots of different ways, but what we most commonly see in the early years is difficulty communicating with others. So this might manifest in difficulty with forms of nonverbal communication. So it might be eye contact, it might be reading facial expressions, it might be understanding body language. What we also might see is difficulty with actual verbal language, which might present as difficulty forming words, composing language, and often that will lead to kind of verbal communication delays. Sometimes it can present more like difficulty with social skills and being a little bit socially inept, maybe sometimes a little bit socially awkward. There can be varying different ways that social communication challenges present in children with autism, but that's some of the most common things that we see. Another thing that we commonly see in children with ASD is strong behavioural preferences, and often we would describe these behavioural preferences as being things that are intense, things that are restricted, or things that are repetitive in their nature. It might present as strong, fixated interests in certain things. This can be an advantage or a challenge at times. Sometimes it can be an advantage because it means that those individuals can hyper-focus on a certain area or aspect that they are finding really meaningful. Other times it can be a bit more challenging because it might be that we need them to focus on something else, like their schoolwork or their daily routines or something like that, and they might be hyper-focused on something that's unrelated. Some of those behavioural preferences can also be restrictive or repetitive. So restricted in terms of maybe strong preferences for sameness is a common one. Wanting routines and procedures in their life to be consistent and familiar. And we might also see behaviours that we might describe as repetitive. So sometimes that can be repetitive motor movements. Other times that can be repetitive in terms of a phrase that they like to say or an action that they like to do repetitively. And then often what we see is clear sensory differences. So the most common being auditory sensitivity, which is sensitivity to noise. We might also see things like sensitivity to busy visual environments. It might be sensitivity around people being close to them and people touching them. We might also see, on the other hand, kids having a really strong preference for touch or a strong preference for movement. But those sensory needs are something that's kind of inbuilt to their neurology and something that we should try and honour where we can. We often talk about the autism spectrum, and the reason why we use that is because a spectrum invokes the understanding that every single point on that spectrum is different. And what we see in autistic individuals is that every individual with autism is different and unique, and their autism presents in different ways. I've worked with hundreds of kids with autism and I've never met two children or two individuals who are the same. Certainly we might see similar traits. That's one of the reasons why autism is considered a developmental condition, is that we can characterize it by certain traits that we see in autistic individuals. Autism forms part of a person's whole personality and their identity. There is nothing that is shameful about being autistic. Perhaps in earlier times, people have had more old-fashioned views around what autism is and how we should treat it. But one thing that we have to remember in autism is that we really need to embrace the fact that individuals may be on the autism spectrum. There's some really great resources out there for parents who suspect their child might have autism. For parents with young kids, there's a really great app that you can download from the App Store or Google Play called AS Detect. It's an app that's been developed by a number of universities, including the University of La Trobe, and that app guides parents through 10 key questions to answer. Using the app, parents can get an assessment score with about 80% accuracy, so really fantastic tool that parents can use. Another really great resource we can access is the Helping Children's Network. So this is a website online, and essentially it's a bit of a database of different resources and articles and composed knowledge around autism. The whole website covers a whole bunch of different parenting related, raising kids kind of content, but there is a whole section on autism and autism therapies, and even some analysis on the effectiveness of different autism therapies. If we're talking about a girl on the spectrum, there's a really great group here in Australia called Yellow Ladybugs. I've seen some great stuff come out of there around understanding how autism presents differently in girls. That's a whole other video in and of itself, but that's another great resource that you can access. Another great resource that I love to access is the Positive Partnerships website. Positive Partnerships, again, is another government-funded resource with videos and workshops that relate to helping people to understand autism better. All these resources that I've talked about, I'll put some links in the description of the video. Remember to like and subscribe so other people can find us.